Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a world-class edition of the Pack Podcast. I am Case. We have our hosts here, Michael, Carl, and Forrest, and we have our very special guest, Jerry Bostic. How are you, man?
Very special. And I'm doing great, guys. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on. So the first question we typically ask is, what got you into professional wrestling?
Man, really, I was a fan from a young age. I remember just scrolling through the channels one day, and I passed this big, built, blonde-headed, bald-headed guy, Hulk Hogan, and I was hooked after that. And I remember, keep in mind, it's a long time ago. It was the 80s. I remember after that, I had to go to the local video stores. And I had to go to the Blockbuster, and I would rent every VHS tape I could. I remember figuring out there were a bunch of WrestleManias at one point.
World-class edition of.
Is that y'all's phone or mine?
Oh, that was
my bad. I apologize. Keep going.
It's all good. I was trying to share it on the page, and I was like, did I do that?
I just shared it on the page, so we're good.
But I just remember having this. I wanted to watch as much as possible, and later on, I worked at a retail store that I ran with one of my best friends, and one day I was like, "Hey man, we should be a wrestler." And this was 2005ish, and they were like, "How are we gonna?" He's like, "How are we gonna do that?" I was like, "I don't know. We'll look it up on the internet." And keep in mind the internet wasn't what it is now, and from there it was off and running. And I always wanted to be either a wrestler or an athlete. I definitely wasn't good enough athlete. I was a half-assed wrestler. So therefore, the only door to get in was being a promoter, because who in their right mind would hire me to wrestle? Except for myself.
Absolutely. You can be one of them.
Exactly. And I am one of them. I've held my own title.
Oh, yes. That's perfect.
Right?
Oh,
it's I don't know, it's funny to say that, but sometimes at least you can count on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I never awarded it to myself for my 5-star technical prowess. I could cut a mean promo in my day, but that was about the extent of it. And I had, in my peak, I probably had 11 moves. Now that I'm older, it's down to about 4, but you got to get in where you fit.
So speaking of champions, can you talk to us about the SWE Real World's Champion coming?
Man, we're getting right into it, aren't we?
Man, I have to have the segue. You already had it.
Yeah, I think what SWE had was something really special, and I think they did a great job. I think they really came on strong during COVID. And that was smart. I mean, you think about how many companies were really running during COVID. I wasn't. I remember the first week that COVID really hit. We called it quits, and I enjoyed a year and a half wrestlecation. That's what I call it, a wrestlecation. I didn't even realize at the time how bad I needed it. Just so drained mentally and physically from just running so hard the last few years. And during that time period, I think Tom and company were very smart about getting their product out there. Especially in Texas, I don't really know any other products that were really running like that. And I think they offered a true alternative to what we see on television now. And at the centerpiece of that, you have Charlie Haas. And Charlie Haas is obviously a decorated amateur wrestler, a decorated pro wrestler, and so we're very lucky to have Charlie. And I think it's only right to let him defend the SWE championship that he never lost. And I think also it continues the story of SWE, as there was a lot of people that weren't ready for that story to be ended. So I think it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Right. Very true. I actually attended probably every show they had back in the very beginning.
SWE. Oh, from the Canton days, huh? You were there for the Canton days?
Canton, Edom, Point, Texas, in the old gin, back in the days and I could see where it was growing, just where we all the guys where we come together and kind of formed a friendship was in Carthage, Texas, a year or so ago, and I bet there was probably 700 to 1,000 people there. It was amazing.
I think sometimes, and we went through the same thing with World Class. Whenever you start growing, it's hard. It's really hard. It's hard in so many ways. It's hard enough being an independent company, but imagine being like seeing an independent company, seeing a major company, and being caught somewhere in between. That's where it starts to get really dangerous, because you don't have the financial backing of a major company. You don't have the staff of a major company, yet you're trying to compete on that level. And, I think that's one of the things that Tom ran into, and we ran into it also. There was, a couple of years ago where, I was just like praying for another day, like, the next show is going to make it better, and eventually, that catches up with you. And it's very unfortunate because, it's not just, in a sense, I remember going through that and feeling, like not only did I let myself down, my family down, but I let the people that worked for me down, because, a lot of people that work for you, whether it be World Class or SWB, they're looking for these opportunities. And there's not a lot of opportunities in this area that put you in front of the right people. And, I think we both did that, both myself and Tom. For a period of time, we had Jim Ross working with us, Gene Okerlund, Kevin Sullivan. We both had Kevin Sullivan. I have Eric Embry. You have to get in front of the right people that can help you get to that next level. And, I always felt like sometimes, and I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm just being honest. I felt like sometimes, we were the best shot that some people had to be seen around here. And so, when all that comes crashing down, it's really hard to handle. And I think that's one thing that helped Tom and myself develop a good friendship, is we could relate on a lot of levels.
Correct. Now, World Class, let me ask another question, Jerry, real quick. World Class, how long, I know when you hear the name World Class, that's back in the day when the Von Erichs, the Freebirds, that's where I started, I guess, watching wrestling back late 70s, early 80s, honestly. So how long, now, when did you take over or kind of start owning that name or bringing in World Class, wrestling?
We started 2016 with this version of the company, and it was called Imperial Wrestling Revolution whenever we first came up with it. And as we grew, really, we didn't make the change until we got our first television deal. And, JR used to make fun of the name for being so long. And even on his podcast, at times he'd be like, make sure you rest up before you type this name in your computer, because it's going to take all day. I mean, he would make jokes about it. And so, I remember when we got the first call for TV, it was a NBC affiliate out of Missouri. And the guy calls and he's like, yeah, I've seen your stuff. We really like it. We had a wrestling company on that went out of business, and we'd like to replace it with your show. I was like, well, thank you. But I don't have a TV show. What you saw was some YouTube footage. And, after that, he was like, well, it's every Saturday following Saturday Night Live. And I was like, we'll take it. And he's like, well, when can you get me the show? And I was like, well, now we're back to the problem that I don't have.
Yeah.
And so
back to square one here.
Yeah. So I remember literally sitting there, and I remember sitting there watching so many videos and reading so many articles on how to do TV. And JR lives about an hour from me, or he did then. He spends most of his time in Jacksonville now. But back then I would just go sit with him with my little notepad that I still use to this day. I'm a big notepad person. And I would just go up there and sit with my notepad and just listen to JR, and he would explain television and how to write segments and how to break up everything. And we delivered them a TV program in a month. And, up until COVID, I think we had around 4 or 5 stations, and we even had international TV at one point. We had TV in Israel. So it was but the name change came about with that first station. We wanted it, we knew it was time to change. And Marshall Von Erich actually came up with the idea, and I was like, whoa. I was like, man, I got to think about that. I was like, man, that's a big thing to take on, because, when you take on the name, you take on the responsibility of everything that came before it. And, your product has to somehow be in sync or a new representation of a product that so many people loved and was so special. And,
Yeah.
and you know, the good thing about it is, I think we do our best to honor the legacy of the old world class. You know, we've had so many of the old world class people appear, where their kids appear, you know, and, you know, I think it also introduces in a way a newer generation of world class, because a lot of the younger people aren't familiar with world class. And you know, when they come to the shows or whatever, we're always quick to remind of where it came from and how special it was, because people don't realize in the 80s just how big world class was at one point. You know, they were direct competition for the WWF. You know, world class was the first company to use multiple camera angles. They were the first people to mic wrestling. They were the first people to produce the modern day vignette as we know. And you know, that was you know, so many different things. They actually held the attendance record at the Cotton Bowl at one point before the WWF went and broke it with WrestleMania. And so a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand a lot of the people they saw in the WWF came from world class. You know, like Mick Foley coming back to world class this Saturday for the first time in I'd say probably 30 years, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, he went on to be a huge superstar, as we all know. Steve Austin, same thing. You know, I mean, there's Undertaker. So many came from world class.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's cool to be able to share that with people and say, hey, if you got the network, go on there and you can watch a lot of the old shows, or you can see a lot of the old footage on YouTube. I always tell people, if you aren't familiar with the old world class, get on YouTube, watch the Heroes of World Class. Do not watch that WWF or WWF documentary. It's garbage.
Doesn't do it
Vince
justice.
always has his own way of telling his version of history.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah. Jerry, thanks a lot for coming on. We are currently live on Facebook. We got questions rolling in. Dog Pound Championship Wrestling's new pound for pound champion, Haas Holding, says it's one of his goals to work for world class pro wrestling in 2022. So keep an eye on him. We also have Neil asking where he can watch the Star Wars pay-per-view. Will it be on YouTube? Where can he watch from a distance? We're still working on that. You know, our old library is available on Segi TV, which is a newer streaming app. It's SEGI. It's available for free download. You can go watch our old library on that. 40 TV episodes, I think 66 episodes of our earlier stuff. As far as this content, we're preparing it for multiple options, whether it be to put on this streaming service, whether it be a network. You know, we're definitely going through all of our options. So at this point, you know, it will be aired at a later date. You know, I've always been one, I don't want to take away from live events. And so, you know, the best way to ever see wrestling is live. So Neil, if you live in the area, you should be in Irving Saturday. You shouldn't be watching on pay-per-view. Shame on you. You should be there at the venue.
Exactly. You got to be there. Like you said, there's no other proper way to watch professional wrestling than being in the building.
It doesn't matter if it's independent wrestling, WWE, whatever. It's always better live.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Forrest, what do you got?
Yes, Jerry. So real quick, another wrestler I wanted to mention is Ryan Moonshine Mantell. So how long has he been wrestling at World Class Wrestling? He's a fan favorite here at the podcast.
Man, you know, I really don't remember the first time I had Ryan. We had Ryan a lot during our Carrollton shows that we were running every week before COVID. And, you know, whenever we started back up, we just knew from the get-go we wanted Ryan to be one of the main guys. Ryan is immensely talented. You know, he has the look of being a professional wrestler, super good dude. And, you know, the match he had in October with Jacob Fatu was fantastic. And now we're about to have round 2 this Saturday. And that's one of the matches I'm looking forward to watching more than you know, I'm not taking away from the rest of the card, but I loved their first one. Can't wait to see their second one. I mean, there's nothing like 2 guys at that size that can get in the ring and literally do almost anything.
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt. And like Forrest said, we're all big fans of Moonshine Mantell. So
If you're a fan of wrestling, you're a fan of Moonshine.
Yes.
without a doubt, you couldn't have said it better.
This is going to be the first, I guess, match since his concussion. He had a concussion, several weeks ago?
Yeah.
We were supposed to see him in San Antonio, but unfortunately was unable to make it. But so we're anxious to see him this weekend.
It's a good thing that wrestling has come far enough to where, these injuries get recognized and people are smart enough to take time off instead of keep pushing it because, even just a few years ago, nobody would have stopped over concussion.
No.
So it's a great thing that wrestling's got to that point because your long-term health is way more important than anything you do in that wrestling.
For sure. Ask Mick Foley. He'll be there.
Exactly.
You have enough security.
If you don't believe me, show up and ask him.
Exactly.
The blood hunter is going to be there too. So
Yeah.
do we have security? Because blood hunter, we've seen him several times before he left the States, but he's always a fan favorite too, it seems like.
A wee bit ferocious, if you will.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, he's one of the most, if not the most intimidating wrestler in wrestling today.
He's intense.
Oh, yeah. My first time seeing him live was in Wichita, a couple months ago. And his match against Sandman, they were all over the place. They broke some stuff at the venue. They broke a door. There were no tables, so somebody threw Blood Hunter threw Sandman through a door, and I was like, "What?"
As you do, of course.
And I saw a match he did with Renee Dupree at Great North Wrestling. Oh my goodness, it was savage. And so I expect nothing less this Saturday against Carlito. I hope Carlito knows exactly what he's getting himself into.
I know.
With Kevin Sullivan in his corner, he's probably going to be more sadistic than him.
I hope that he understands that Blood Hunter probably not going to be cool.
Yeah, I hope he got the memo.
Yeah.
So can you talk about the OMGs coming to World Class? A huge fan from the podcast, of course, and we say that about everybody, but
nothing wrong with that. We're I think most of us in this business are marks to some extent.
Yeah,
and if you say you're not, then you're filling yourself full of shit. But the OMGs are extremely talented. I'm looking forward to having them live. We'd like for them to become a big attraction of World Class, and I think their SWE title run was very impressive. Super talented dudes. I think they can probably work any team in the business.
For sure. So one question that I know just in general, some companies don't prioritize tag team wrestling. And it's a shame because I've always been a huge fan of tag team wrestling. So I was curious if World Class is really putting a focus on tag teams or what the focus is.
Absolutely. I think one reason why tag team wrestling isn't prioritized like it was before, I think a lot of that is there's not a lot of teams like there was before. You look back in the 80s and 90s, and there were so many amazing tag teams, or even the early 2000s. So, but it's kind of faded along with like managers. Managers is another thing that's faded, and it's there's a place for it in wrestling, and there's always going to be a place. But a great tag team is exactly that. They are a team. They operate together, and they look like they go together. They have they produce moves that go together. And I think tag team wrestling it is definitely one of our focuses, one of Charlie Haas's main focuses, and it's something that we've discussed in great length, just us in general, the office. And it's definitely going to be a main focus in World Class, as we're also introducing a welterweight championship, which will be everybody 200 pounds and less, and we're going to have a heavy focus on that too. So we want everybody to excel in whatever division fits them best. But tag team wrestling is super important to the wrestling industry in general, and hopefully as a whole the industry gets back to that. I think AEW has some solid teams. I don't know about the psychology of some of them, or the fact that they don't even use the tag rope sometimes. Just crazy little psychology things that I shouldn't even pay attention to. But you look at WWE, it seems like a lot of the teams in WWE, like RK Bro, they're single wrestlers put together. I'm not knocking them either. I don't watch WWE that often, or wrestling in general, actually. But I think that a great tag team was the Steiners, the Hart Foundation, Road Warriors, Arn and Tully, just teams that teams that went together and you knew it. You had no doubt that these guys were tag teams. Hell, if they weren't brothers, some of them you thought should have been brothers. So hopefully wrestling gets back to that. Because I think wrestling has evolved in so many ways, and not all of them are for the best.
For sure. There's one thing is, like you said, WWE will put two singles wrestlers and throw them in a tag team. But another thing that I kind of have issues with is they'll have a tag team for a month, 2 months, and then they won't be one anymore. Even if it's established.
And oftentimes for no reason. For no reason,
just because, maybe he woke up one morning like, I don't really want these guys to be a team anymore. And they won't be.
I don't know. It blows my mind. Do you guys know what you have to have in order to be a writer for WWE? Are you guys aware of this? You have to have a journalism degree. How many wrestling fans you think got journalism degrees? We'll leave it at that.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm not one to come on and knock anybody, but I think it's more disappointing than anything, because I think most of us want to support WWE. We want to watch WWE, but they're not very good at giving us reasons to watch it. That's probably the nice,
throw us a bone.
Correct way of putting it.
Yeah.
And I hope it gets better. The industry is better whenever WWE is thriving and they have competition. And I'm not ready to say AEW is their competition because I don't believe that they are, but they are an alternative. And I'm not knocking them. I think they're doing great things. But I saw something where I think Tony Khan said something about them being competition, and you are not competition whenever you're making a fraction of what that multi-million-dollar company is.
Yeah.
You are not competition. Whenever you start turning those numbers, then you can call yourself that. Whenever you're getting those kind of TV deals, then you can call yourself competition. But to say it so soon is premature. And I saw some stuff Eric Bischoff said about it, and I agree 100% with Eric Bischoff.
For sure. Carl, what you got?
Jerry, this Saturday, the big show in Irving, what are some of your matches, your favorite matches you're looking forward to? And if you don't mind, just kind of going over a few so the fans will know. We're watching the Facebook post, but go over if you don't mind.
Honestly, I think the card is solid.
Yeah.
We can just kind of run down some of them. Yeah. I think Blood Hunter Carlito is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I want to see how Carlito is going to thrive in that environment. Because it's not his usual environment.
Yeah.
I can tell you there's no way in hell I get in the ring with the Blood Hunter. No way. Yeah. Period. Not happening.
Gangrel. We saw Blood Hunter and Gangrel fight several months ago in Dallas, I believe it was, and actually in Irving maybe. And it was just amazing. I mean, there was blood everywhere, but it was a great match.
He has that name for a reason. Yeah. I mean, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Obviously Charlie Haas and Gino Medina. Gino is a second generation wrestler, one of Booker T's, star trainees. Him and Charlie should have an amazing match. Charlie can wrestle anybody. Gino brings the American and Lucha style to the table. He brings the MLW pedigree. That should be a killer match as well. Moonshine and Fatu round 2. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if that match doesn't steal the show. I mean, but then again, any of these matches that I just talked about can steal the show.
And you have some great ladies matches too.
Yeah, we have Danny B, who's out of Oklahoma, but was also one of Booker's students, and now a member of Women of Wrestling. She's taken on Kelsey Reagan, who's out of Florida, who is one of Devon Dudley's students. That's where she graduated from the Dudley Academy. And so many great things about her. We have Erica Torres taking on Jenny Santana. Erica is the youngest NWA women's champion of all time, also with an MMA background. And Jenny Santana is a decorated jiu-jitsu award winner, won many tournaments. You can put her resume up there with Ronda Rousey as far as jiu-jitsu goes, and that's the truth. Jenny is also the daughter of Tito Santana, so that's going to be a very special day. So yeah, I think it's amazing how far women's wrestling has come. I remember back in the day, I didn't want to watch it. I'm like, oh no, it's like bathroom time, or get up and go get a drink or something and then come back. But now, the women are as good as the men, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's great to see the evolution of women's wrestling. And, I think, really the Trish Stratus, Lita era, they were killing it. The Impact knockouts, obviously. Gail Kim's one of my dearest friends. And,
Yeah, Gail Kim, Awesome Kong.
Oh, yeah. Those matches were so amazing. We got Andrew Anderson versus stepbrother Tigo. Stepbrother Tigo has been with me for 15 years. Held numerous championships in the company, a guy that I could always depend on no matter who it was. I remember Oklahomania 2. He wrestled John Morrison one-on-one, and that was probably match of the night. Andrew, who was coming back as the Purple Haze with Kevin Sullivan in the new Dungeon of Doom, which includes the Purple Haze, Andrew Anderson, the Blood Hunter, and someone else that you guys will recognize when he decides to make his name well known in World Class.
Is that another reason to be there? Another reason to be there.
You never know when it's going to happen, but the new Dungeon of Doom is forming. And, I'm looking forward to seeing Andrew. He's in the best shape I've seen him be in.
Oh,
and,
like Andrew's a good friend of ours, the podcast. We've had him on our show and we've seen him at several matches, and he's incredible. We're proud of him.
A lot of people don't realize too, he's been on The Wrestler, the movie The Wrestler. He's been on Gotham. He's been in Skittles commercials. Andrew has had a really accomplished career. We got Flex Zerba versus Action Jackson. Flex Zerba is one of my favorite performers. I think you guys might have seen him with Niles Planke once or twice with SWE. Flex is amazing. And, I've never seen Action Jackson in person. And Action Jackson is the oldest working member of the original World Class roster. So, it's got to be cool. Yeah, it's got to be cool for him to come back. And I love Iceman. Iceman's one of my dearest friends. He's such a good dude. One of my favorite people to be around. Usually every time I'm in that area, we go out and eat or see each other when it's possible. I love Iceman. We got Double D and Kyle Hawk. Double D is one of the best, welterweight division wrestlers in the area. Whether it be Oklahoma, Texas, he's held numerous championships. He's worked for me for probably 3 years now. Kyle has worked for me a long time too. Him and Coyotes, the Aero Club, they had a memorable feud with the Von Erichs for a couple of years in this area. And of course, we got the OMGs going for the tag team titles. And we had a last minute change, so they will actually be working Mr. Nasty and Colt Kilbane, two of Oklahoma's best wrestlers. So that match should be very hard hitting. But the card overall, it's a really good card. We're looking to showing people the new World Class.
Awesome. Mike, you have any questions on Facebook?
Yeah, so flipping back over to the comment section, Neil says, thank you for answering his question. He says he should be there and hopes there are some good seats left. So
that's
Neil,
the spirit, Neil. Get your ass there.
Shouldn't be there. Will be there.
He'll be there.
Hope to see you at the show. Aaron Presley says, looking forward to seeing Christmas Star Wars live.
I love Aaron. I just did I did the World's Greatest podcast a couple of weeks ago, and that's the first time I actually got to talk with Aaron. Aaron's great, dude. Great.
Fantastic guy.
Good.
We have Anastasia saying hello. Mark asked what the next couple of months looks like for World Class. And this kind of goes into my question. I know you guys have previously been in Kansas. Do you see a future here in Texas?
Yeah, first off, Anastasia, hello. And thank you for watching tonight. December is really the start of everything for us. When January rolls around, we will be at Southern Junction every month in 2022. And we will also be doing North Richland Hills, the NITEX Center, that same weekend every month. So we will have 2 shows in the DFW area every month. We return to Kansas in February 27th at the Cotillion with Sting. I think we're the only independent wrestling company Sting works for, and that's always been an honor for me. Growing up, Sting and Hulk Hogan were my 2 favorites, and Sting has also made a difference in my life personally. We've attended church together, had a good relationship personally, and Sting's done a lot for me, so I appreciate it. And whenever you have somebody like that, it also legitimizes your product. Makes it more legit. because, you can't just go watch Sting anywhere. After that, in early March, we will roll into Kansas Mania. Oklahomania was our first signature show. Now we have 3 or 4. And we'll also be, bless you, Carl.
Thank you.
We'll also be at WrestleMania weekend this year too. So, we have a lot of good things coming up, but 2022, we're establishing Texas as our home.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Super excited to see it. So one question I had is we had brought up SWE earlier. And so Charlie Haas had a faction in SWE. And I was curious, privileged. And I was curious if maybe, since there's members in the world class roster, if we could see something like that in world class. You don't have to answer, but I would like an answer.
I will just say, never say never. Every story that's written deserves an end.
Fantastic. Awesome. I will not pry.
We're really in December, we started the push of, we were really good before at putting on very good spot shows. That's pretty much, it's what they were, in all honesty. We're making the move to episodical television on this run. And every show, we're going to give you a reason to want to come back.
And on that note, can you talk about the fan experience that someone can expect when they attend a world-class show?
I don't think it's just world-class in general. I think it's independent wrestling. In my opinion, I don't think there's any fan experience like an independent wrestling show. I'm not taking away from any of the major companies. I actually think there's some independent elements to AEW that they've done really good at. But you can't just go to WWE and meet the talent. You can't go to WWE and feel like a part of the show. I guess you can meet their talent if you want to pay like $500 or something crazy. But there's nothing like independent wrestling, and you never know who you're going to see on the independent level that you're going to turn around and see on TV the next day or the next year or whatever the time frame may be. But to me, I've always taken it very personal what a fan's experience is. I feel like you should treat people the way you want to be treated, and when they come to a show, they should get what you want as a promoter. What you would want from a show. I feel like world class typically delivers that to people. And, I take the fan part of it very seriously because, without fans supporting you, then you can't do what you love to do. None of us can be involved in wrestling on any level without fan support, because without fan support, you have no product. And I think it's amazing sometimes what you take for granted. I think probably, not just wrestling, but in life. And I think a lot of people probably during COVID, they had a lot of things taken from them all the way around in life, wrestling, family, just so many different areas that, I think a lot of us realize that you shouldn't take certain things for granted anymore. And going and supporting indie shows is what keeps these promotions alive. You have to support them to keep them alive. It's like we talked about earlier. We don't have the financial support that the bigger companies do. So, whether it be world class, SWE, anybody else, in order to keep those companies flourishing, we need your support. And in return, we're going to give you our heart in our product. And every time, every show that I put on, whether it be good, bad, or ugly, my heart is in it.
And that's so true. If it wasn't for the fans, there's nobody to wrestle for. And that's why we started this show and our group basically to help support all the indie wrestling around Texas and the promotions. We love them all. And we've met a lot of great people over the last 5 or 6 months for sure.
That's great that you say it like that. That's great that you say, and you love them all, because, a lot of times people see it as competition.
Right.
Newsflash, most of us are not competition. You should be working together, as long as it's healthy. Sometimes there are unhealthy, issues to where people can't work together, but for the most part, people should work together, support each other when it's possible.
Right. Correct. Case?
Well, I just want to say our co-host Jeffrey just came in.
Are you guys roommates?
No, he wishes, but I do know he had a question for you.
Of course.
Yeah.
You even shared the mic with him.
while we're on the subject, busy time of year for me. Sorry, I'm a little bit late, but we were mentioning you talking about the independent scene and the importance of it. I've watched a few. I watched you on Hannibal's podcast, and I watched you. I've looked up a couple videos of you, and you seem like a real smart, straight shooter, down to earth, and I think that speaks volumes to the success that World's Class having, and to put it lightly, why other companies didn't succeed. Because it starts at the top. So I want to say thank you for doing it the right way and running a great organization like World Class seems to be.
Thank you. And honestly, I'm not perfect. I'm no
Right.
better than anybody that's listening or watching this. I make mistakes every day in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And wrestling is tough. It takes a toll on you mentally, it takes a toll on you physically. And all you can do, whether it be wrestling or anything else, is just do the best you can do. And I've done a lot of good, a lot of bad, and a lot of in between. God has blessed me with more than I ever thought possible through wrestling. So, at the least, you should want to give back to others, and you should want to share with people that have that same love as you do. And in my opinion, from what I've seen, I played almost every sport at some point. I've been involved in so many different sports and entertainment aspects, and I think wrestling has one of the most loyal fan bases that there is. And it's crazy because you go to like football games and like two people that are cheering for different teams, they might legit not like each other for that reason. You can go to a wrestling show, people cheer and boo different people, and you might walk away with 2 or 3 new friends, and that's a beautiful thing. I remember the first WrestleMania I went to, I just stood in line and talked to people all day, and it's like, man, like this really was like an extended family because wrestling brings people together. One thing that I found out about wrestling that I think is true, I think oftentimes wrestling fills a void in people's lives. And the cool thing about it is it brings us together, but those voids that it fills, that void varies by the person. I remember like a few years ago, you got to watch these questions because I get deep real fast. And, like a few years ago, like I wanted acceptance from wrestling because, like I didn't love myself. I didn't love certain things about me. And, because I have issues like anybody else. And I would get that acceptance through wrestling. So bam, that was like a void that was being filled. And I think a lot of us have those voids. And it's amazing that wrestling can do that. As long as you can keep it in a healthy manner. I think that, you should definitely keep your faith in God and trust God in the process as much as you can. And I'm not perfect at that either. I remember whenever my relationship with Sting started to grow, he had explained to me real fast, about wanting to control situations and wanting to, wanting me to force outcomes out of them. And you can't. You just have to, do your part, put your faith in it, and let it roll. Sometimes it's gonna be good, sometimes it's gonna be bad. But God, I think one of the most important things I had to learn, God works on his own time, not on ours. And I'm not standing here as a holy roller or anybody that passes judgment or none of that, because I don't. I don't think it's our place to pass judgment in wrestling or life. We all have our faults, we all have issues. And one day, God makes that call. And that's one of the saddest parts sometimes in wrestling is you get on the internet and you see so much negativity about promotions or people. And, I think it's hard to remember sometimes that, look yourself in the mirror because none of us are perfect and we all mess up. Like I said, I can't even tell you how many times I mess up. But, I've been blessed and I just try to, it was a real heads up one time when I figured out like people actually did pay attention to me and they looked up to me. Because I think a lot of times when you get into wrestling, you want money and you want to be on TV or you want this and that and the other, but you don't want the responsibilities that come along with it. And I remember that was a very drastic change in my life when I realized that, and that you have, even on this level, you have this small bit of influence. Once you get it, what are you going to do with it?
Right. Yeah, so I want
That's
to
wild,
circle
wasn't
back.
it? You're like, damn, I wish I wouldn't ask that.
Got cheated for no reason.
Well, actually, I want to circle back to one of your first points. You said wrestling fills a void, and you touched on that stuff. It actually leads into a question that I had prepared for you. Do you recall?
Look at that segue.
Yeah. Do you recall or remember the first moment or event that hooked you into wrestling or made you decide you wanted to make this a career and delve more into this? What was that spark?
My first event was awful. I remember I had all these people on the show too. I mean, most people, this was so ass backwards. Most people, they start small and they build up. No, like sometimes I just do moronic things. And my first show was just littered with stars. I mean, I think the main event was Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell versus Jeff Jarrett and Scott Steiner.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, like, R-Truth was on this show. Natalie Neidhart's biggest match at that time was on this show against Gail Kim and Christy Hemme. Molly Holly was the referee. R-Truth was there. Dr. Death was there. It was New Jack. He got banned from Oklahoma over that show.
Oh, no.
There was all kinds of people there. And Rhino was there. I love Rhino. Nice guy. After that, I thought magically people would just know it was coming and you didn't have to really do anything because you had all these stars. And, this was before social media really blew up. And, I say it was a huge failure. I mean, it wasn't that bad. There was like 500 people, but, I needed there to be like 1,500. And, after that, I really thought like the days of doing wrestling on that level were over. I think I spent the next probably 10 years just doing small shows. Actually one of those small shows I produced Gail Kim versus Jazz for the first time ever, because like I said, me and Gail are friends and Jazz was always a dream opponent of hers. And so, we made that match happen.
Yeah, we love Jazz.
Oh yeah. And so 10 years later, whenever I'd blown my knee out, a couple years before that. Whenever I came back this last time, I told myself that, I'm going to leave it all on the table. There's no sense in playing around. It's either going to work or it's not. And I'm in it. And, I remember because up to that point, I'm from Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I'd always stayed in Ardmore. I'd never ran shows outside of Ardmore. And I remember, whenever we made that decision that, we were going to get out of Ardmore. I remember one of the guys, it's always been like, I feel like the only person that's going to stop you most of the time from accomplishing something is yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I remember saying we were going to get out of Ardmore, and one of the guys like, well, how are we going to do that? I was like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's always my thing. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And I created a fundraising program that got us out of Ardmore. And, then I took on a couple of partners at that time. And we just worked and worked and worked. And we finally had our first big show. And it was reminding me so much of my first show. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a failure. This is horrible. Like I wagered everything we had on it. And it had like Kevin Nash. He was actually wrestling one of the last wrestling matches he had, I think. Chavo was on that show. Gail Kim, of course, Madison Rain, Brodus Clay, whatever, Tyrus. Yeah, sad booking, man. He ended up having to give me some of his money back because he wanted to bet on Manny Pacquiao over Floyd Mayweather. I just took his money. I just took his money right back. I try to think of who else was on that show. I think that was it. And I remember, the day the show rolled around, I was pretty disappointed. And I was wondering, like, what in the world is going on? Why is it taking so long for these people to get there? And I went up there. I'm like, what is going on? And my mom, God bless my mom, my dad, they've helped me out a lot. And they've gone to a lot of my shows. I remember my mom, she was like, look outside. Makes me emotional thinking about it. And, I remember looking outside and I shit you not, like the line to get into the show was like a mile long. And I was like, oops, what do we do now? Now it's a whole different problem. And I remember because the people waited so long. I still try to do this when I get the chance. I actually walked down the line and thanked every single person for coming. From there it was off and running. Then I remember a few more shows later, we got our first casino deal. And, it's like all these things start happening. And it's like, they always say, be careful what you wish for. And it's true, because you just might get it. And guess what? Whenever you get it, you might not know what to do. And, there's no handbook on promoting wrestling, because every event, every situation is different. And, I've made a lot of good decisions. I've made a lot of bad ones. And, I've done a lot of right and a lot of wrong, but you don't know until you're in those situations. And I always felt like, so I would say those really made me realize, like, we have a shot and to make it work. And, I remember the first time I got slapped with the only time I got slapped at the cease and desist from WWE, I was like, man, I must be doing something right.
Got on their nerves somehow.
Oh, you know what it was me and JR, we created the super event Oklahoma. And I remember whenever, bless you, Carl.
Thank you.
I remember whenever, I remember when JR brought it up. I thought he was joking, because we didn't have a name for this event. He's like, Oklahomania. I'm like, what? He's like, you think that's funny? I was like, no, sir. And, lo and behold, a few weeks later, I got that email, and it was from the WWE lawyer.
Oh,
They went to a lot of work, let me tell you. They went back, I think at that time, 2.5 years of our social media, and found 8 pictures that I used that belonged to them. And whoever handled this, they had exactly what it was, where they saw it, when it was.
oh,
I was like, damn, they went to a lot of trouble. And what's funny was, it was crazy. At first I was laughing. I was telling my buddy, he's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, we're going to let them sue us. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, man, it's like $1,500 a picture. We'll take it, run with it, get the publicity from it. This could be a good thing. And he was like, you are a dumbass. Read that email. So I read the email again, and it turns out it was $150,000 a picture. And I was like,
oh no.
I was like, we better get that down right now. And
Wow.
and they left me alone afterwards, until the next Oklahomania. And then they decided they were going to run in Oklahoma the same day.
wow.
And so they were in Tulsa, we were in Ardmore, which is about 3 hours away, but still, WWE being that close is trouble. And we ended up beating them. We outdrew them. But it was a house show, so it's not like it was Monday Night Raw or anything.
Oh, I wouldn't have told him it was WrestleMania that day.
I don't want to lead people to think something that's not true. And we had Sting and Kevin Von Erich in the ring for the first time ever, the only time ever. And that card was so solid that day. We had it was our second convention. We had one at the first one. And from there it was kind of off and running. But, like I said, eventually, it catches up with you whenever you don't have financial backing. You don't have a lot of room for anything to go wrong, because I think one of the hardest things we took on was expanding. You have to expand to grow, but there's also going to come with these pitfalls, because whenever you go into a new territory, it's not going to establish itself. You have to have time. It's like with us coming back into DFW and trying to run it twice a month. We fully expect it to take us 3 to 4 months to establish the territory. But the first go round, you don't know what to expect. And it's sad looking at it, looking back on it now, because, wrestling is very hard relationship wise. It's hard to maintain relationships with people inside of the business. And it's hard because you don't know the right answers to all of the problems, but yet people, they will put you on a pedestal that you don't necessarily want or deserve to be on. And they will expect you to be perfect. They'll expect you to make all of the right decisions and do all of the right things. And that's not realistic. And, I think that, I lost a lot of relationships in that period. After the show Saturday, all of my original talent from 2016, most of them have moved on. And, that's okay. I hope they do well, but at a certain point, it goes from being a hobby to a business, and it's a whole different beast. It's like working at WWE. How many of those people do you think are Vince's friends?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm in no way, shape, or form am I comparing myself to. But it's a tough business. And I remember whenever those things started changing, those are the moments that you realize, like, you have a shot at doing this and you can do it, but you don't know what you're getting yourself into, because there's a lot of triumph and heartbreak along the way. And it's very severe both ways. I mean, it's very drastic both ends of the spectrum. And I remember going through a period of that, feeling so alone. And whenever we went through hardships, just feeling like everything was my fault. And some stuff is, some stuff isn't. But you just can't get it. You can't give up. If you really want something, you're going to take these things as lessons learned. And no matter how hard you get knocked down, you're going to get up. I know, man. Like, you guys ask a question, I turn it into like a mini novel.
No,
That's all about. That's what it's all
No,
about.
don't worry. People will learn life lessons from this podcast. It's
Yeah.
fine.
I see Carl over there. I thought he's falling asleep a minute ago.
no.
Oh no, he's too busy sneezing and coughing today.
That's probably the only thing that woke him up. The coffee.
Probably.
What can we expect to see coming up in the next couple months? The Von Erichs
At
performing.
this point, that's up in there. I was really disappointed that they weren't coming to this show. Things happen in life.
Right.
I can't really go into a lot of details of what happened. I really feel like they should have been here, but ultimately, that's one of the pitfalls of an indie promotion. Is most of the time you're going off your word and their word.
Yeah.
And you're trusting people.
Right.
And
Totally understand.
it's hard sometimes because you're human. You have feelings and emotions no matter what, whether you want to, whatever. And I felt very disappointed over it. But at the end of the day, you have to see both ends of the spectrum on most things. You have to learn to see things. Yeah, it's not just wrestling. You need to do it in life. You need to learn to see both ends of the spectrum. And the decision that they made was the best decision for them. Okay. And when you look at it like that, it's hard to be upset with them, because Marshall and Ross really are great guys. And they really have a lot of love in their heart. And so it's hard to be upset with somebody when you know their heart like that. And even if you feel like they didn't necessarily make the right decision by you, you have to understand that sometimes things are a little more complex.
Right.
And in the end, at the end of the day, Marshall just had his second kid. And they have a lot of land there they take care of. There's a lot of duties there.
Yeah.
And, they had to do what was best for them.
Right. Understand.
But I'm not ruling it out that they won't come back at some point.
Okay.
For 3 years, I was pretty much the only promoter that used them. A couple of others did here and there.
Yeah.
But, they were the figureheads of the company. They were what it meant to be world class, through that period. And I felt like we all grew so much together. I remember the first time they came in. I remember after the first Oklahomania, I remember JR telling me the Von Erich train had sailed or something crazy, because they had a poor showing. But one thing I learned as a worker when we first started blowing up, I remember I worked Jinder Mahal one day, and before we went out there, it's kind of intimidating working somebody like that for the first time, especially when you're only a half-ass worker. So
you got a mean promo though.
Oh yeah, I cut a mean promo, and I remember before we went out there, he called probably 25 spots, and I might remember 7 if I'm doing good, because being a promoter, you got all these other things going on. And I remember we go out there, and not only did he call the spots, but he was calling my moves, which isn't smart when you've only got 11 at your peak to let somebody call him, because he's going to call something that is not in your move set.
He called 25 and I only have 11 max.
Yeah. I remember he called an arm drag, right? Which is a simple move. But guess what? It's a move I never do. And so I go give him this arm drag, and it's horrid. And after a certain point, I forget the spots. I mean, we made it through it. It wasn't that bad. But we get to the back, and he's like, "Boss, what kind of arm drag was that?" And I was like, "It was a shit drag. I don't do those moves." And it was a double shot. So the next day we had the same match in art, and we started going through the same spiel. And I was like, "Wait."
No arm
like,
drag.
I was like, man, if we just call it on the fly and just listen to people, it's going to be so much better. And he's like, "Oh, you can do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And I think whenever the Von Erichs came back initially, because at one point, I really didn't know if we'd use them. And then I decided to bring them back in. When I brought them back in, I had the conversation with them. And I think it's important for people to understand this that are in the business too. Like if you aren't comfortable with somebody calling all those spots and you're not going to remember, it doesn't make you lesser of a worker or lesser of a person to be honest and tell them that you're not going to remember the stuff, and that you are better suited calling something. And because not everybody is a spot caller, definitely not everybody has the memory to remember that spots. And the ultimate thing is to put on the best match possible. And why put yourself in the position to do something if you aren't capable of doing it? And like I said, it doesn't make you lesser on any level. It makes you honest, and it makes you want, to put out the best product possible, which should be everybody's goal. And really, I wish there was more of that wrestling today. It was kind of an older thing, that we're going to call it while we're out there. Because if you think about it like this, if you have all these spots playing out and nobody's buying into it, what are you going to do? You've already played the whole match. You can't fix it. But if you go out there and you just call certain aspects of the match, the rest you call on the fly, you can listen. If you listen to them while you're out there, they will tell you when to go to the next stage of the match. The people will tell you what to do, because while you're out there, you're holding their emotions in the palm of your hand, and all you have to do is listen.
For sure, without a doubt. I believe Boris had something.
Yeah, so I asked everybody this question when they come on. What is your Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling?
Shit, how many people are on Mount Rushmore? 5? Is that right? 5?
4, but we can give a top 5.
4. Oh, damn. I've never been there. Don't hold it against me.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah, you get one.
Yeah,
extra.
there we go.
Extra
All 5
percent.
Von Erichs. No, I'm just kidding. That was the easy way out. Man, top 4, just my personal favorites. Is that what we're doing, or who I think should
Whatever
really
you want
be
to do.
The Mountie, Bastion Booger, Repo Man,
The Man Tar.
Skinner. No, I don't know, man. My real top 4: Sting, Hogan, Flair. I remember as a kid, I hated Ric Flair. Hated him. I don't like to use that term as an adult. As a kid, I hated him, like with a passion. Like I knew every time they were going to cheat, and he was somehow going to keep that title, and I was so mad because the Stinger needed it, not him. And when I got older, I realized like he was a master. Ric Flair was a master. To make a kid have those emotions, Ric Flair was a master.
Yeah.
And I would say Austin and Cena. I'm not a huge fan of Cena, really, work-wise. I liked him when he was the rapper gimmick. I had some rap songs in my own, so we could relate. But you can't take away what Cena's done. Nobody has carried that company longer than Cena at a continuous time. Cena set the record for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Cena also went on and have a reputable acting career. I saw that the preview for that new show he has coming out called The Peacemaker yesterday, and I thought, damn it, this looks good. I can't believe it. It's like I still can't believe when he puts out good movies, But whether you like Cena or you don't, if you're in this business, respect what he's done. Respect that he carried it respect that he's probably the last legitimate superstar that we've seen created. You know, you can be a star. There's a lot of stars, but you know, a superstar is a totally different level. Jimmy Hart brought this up. We were having a conversation about how do you know what a superstar is? And he had this conversation with Vince, and Vince said a superstar is somebody that you pass in an airport that even a casual wrestling fan would know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that doesn't watch wrestling hardly at all knows
Mm-hmm.
who that is.
Yep.
So who, I'm going to ask you guys, we're going to flip the script.
Oh no.
So who in today's wrestling do you think that somebody that hardly watches wrestling at all would notice in an airport?
That's a very good question. Not getting used to ask question, but it's fine.
I would say Brock Lesnar
Yeah.
for
That's-
sure.
I feel like Undertaker, even though he's not
Mhm.
current anymore.
No, he's still on there. He did that Netflix movie.
Yeah, he's somewhere.
I think those are I think maybe Roman Reigns. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
anyone now, it would be Roman.
Because of his connection with The Rock, it puts him.
Yeah.
Well, he has a distinct look,
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
you know, and he's a big guy.
He
But
is.
do you think that, and I'm not knocking him because I like some of his stuff, especially his promo work. Do you think that anybody's going to notice CM Punk at an airport?
Oh no. No.
Oh,
Like I said, I'm not knocking him. I like CM Punk. It's just a question.
Cut the feed. Cut the feed.
Let me guess, you're a huge CM Punk fan.
He's off the show.
Hey,
You are,
Jerry-
aren't you?
Yes,
He
I
is,
love
he is.
I
CM
knew it
Punk.
when I saw the glowing mic.
That's
Jerry,
actually a pipe bomb. That's not even a mic.
Nah, okay. I would drop it, but it's expensive. Okay.
It goes off in a little bit. Jerry,
But can
did
you honestly say, since you're a huge CM Punk fan, can you honestly say that somebody that hardly watches wrestling would know?
No, because he looks like a regular
he does
guy.
look like a regular guy.
You know, and
He looks
and
like a
you know,
regular
there used to be,
punk guy. You know.
yeah, there used to be a mystique about being a pro wrestler. There used to
Right.
be a mystique. That
Jerry-
mystique is lost to a large degree.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get the chance to meet Harley Race back in the day, or work with him at all? Or
Unfortunately, I did not, man. Our paths have never crossed,
Yep.
and they never did. And you know, but a lot of respect for Harley Race for what he did. You know, he was a wrestler's wrestler.
he was one of my favorites back in the day, and like Ric Flair, I mean, he made you hate him, or you know, he had that. He was it. You know, he was
You
a
know,
true.
one of the evolutions of wrestling, you know, are move sets. And I think in a lot of ways, moves have taken over the industry instead of an individual. And that's dangerous too, because is it sustainable to have emotional attachments to moves? To me, wrestling is about an emotional connection. And a character like Ric Flair, Harley Race, Hogan, Steen, all these characters, you know, they drew from your emotions. You know, I remember watching whenever Hogan, I guess he was really leaving to film a movie or some shit. But I remember when Earthquake jumped on him on national TV and was like jumping up and down on him, you know, like breaking his ribs. I remember sitting in front of the TV, no lie, I was bawling my eyes out, begging him to get up, you know. And yeah, I remember the emotions that I felt the first time Sting won the championship and finally beat that dastardly Ric Flair. You know, I remember so many emotional things when Bret Hart won his first singles championship. You know, like the Steiners, when they finally got Doom after all this time that Ron Simmons and Butch Reed and Teddy Long and ran wild over them and cheated them. And, you know, I remember Hogan and Warrior WrestleMania 6. You know, so many emotional moments. Or even Hogan and Rock at WrestleMania 18, watching them live and being sucked in, you know, because they knew how to pull at your heartstrings. You know, you watch Hogan and Rock, and I mean, really, what did they even do in that match? But everything they did, it was like the world stopped. You know, I mean, you think about, I mean, it was really in a sense bad booking because, you know, Hogan was supposed to be a heel, but Hogan you know, he's
Hogan.
like overly popular in Toronto. So we had an issue number one there, you know, and then that shows you how good Hogan and The Rock were, because they rolled with it. They just totally flipped roles on the fly, you know. And I don't know how many times it's happened, but on a stage that huge, I mean, it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
and
like
they just went with it and rolled with it. And so
Charlie Haas is an example. He can make you hate him. You know, every match we've seen him in, he's awesome at that. I mean, he's doing his job, but you know, we love watching him because of that too.
yeah, you know, I mean, think about, I mean, what is a heel in today's wrestling?
Right.
You know, Charlie is a last of a dying breed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, a heel cheats. A heel is everything that's bad, you know. And but now, you know, I think one of the biggest conflicts is the heel also wants to sell merchandise. So as dirty, especially on the independent level, as dirty as they are in the ring, guess what? Like 20 minutes later, they're going to be your best buddy if you buy their t-shirt.
For that $20,
You know,
Right.
and so that character flips that fast. And
Yeah.
how is that believable if you just saw them being a bad guy?
Right.
So
And
a lot
that-
of the psychology things that built wrestling have gone way in reverse.
Right.
And, you know, I think in a lot of ways, SWE tried to right that wrong. And, you know, in a lot of ways, we're going to attempt to do the same thing as we start to unveil kind of our master plan of the direction we want to go. You're going to see a lot of things that are going to bring a lot of those things back in wrestling. You know, Eric Embry, who was notorious for bringing the world-class territory back whenever people thought that it was gone. He's fixing to do the same exact.
Good. We'll talk also, Jerry, a little bit about you have a big meet and greet before the show Saturday night. So you want to talk a little bit about that? What time and who's going to be there?
The VIP starts at 5. I think the other ticket holders get in at 5:30 or 6. You know, it's going to be great. Mick Foley will be doing the meet and greet. Everybody on the roster will be doing it except Charlie, because Charlie does not do meet and greets because he's a heel's heel.
Yeah.
He's a heel.
You know, and you know, when he told me that, I was like, wow, man, that's on the money. You know, we talked about the psychology behind it, and you know, Charlie is still one of the best pound for pound wrestlers in pro wrestling.
Yep.
You know, we're still holding out hope that Jericho accepts that challenge.
Yep.
You know, we hope to get one on their turf and one on ours.
There you go.
You know, but I think the meet and greet's always a special thing. It's like we talked about earlier. It's the independent scene gives you a chance to really make a connection with somebody and to really spend some quality time with them. I remember the first time I met Sting was a WWE meet and greet, and you know, I didn't want to like mark out on my own show, so I had to go do it at one of theirs.
Yeah.
And I remember I paid like $300 for this thing. And I remember like going up there, and it's like they snap a pic, slap me on the ass, told me good game, get the hell out of here.
Oh.
And I remember, you know, because it's so fast in WWE, like they really just don't care. There was nothing against Sting; he wasn't controlling. But you know, I remember after that, you know, I told my people, I was like, don't ever let me see you push somebody through that line. Like they pay for this, they pay for this time, and you don't know. I mean, I've told them tons of times, listen, you don't know what people are going through in life, because we don't know. I mean, we don't know what each other's going through.
Right.
But you don't know how much somebody might need that time. They might need that acknowledgement, you know, something that can be given. And you want to be the one to take it away? I don't. So I think, you know, one thing about our meet and greets is you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Right.
Good to
That's
hear.
hard.
But I think, you know,
money
on the independent levels defense, I think that is the same most ways. You get what you pay for on an independent show.
Oh, most definitely.
And from what I've seen from AEW, I think they're pretty good about it too. But, you know, these people pay for this.
Yeah.
I steal it.
Right. That
Yeah.
one-on-one.
Yeah. I mean, because like I said, you know, I've told people in the locker room before shows, like, pay attention to the people that come in here.
Yeah.
You know, really pay attention to them, because you never know who might need that from you. And you giving them that attention doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
Right. So I've heard you mention Sting a couple of times. So I'm gonna throw this out there for us. My brother back this up, but Sting is the single reason he was my first favorite wrestler ever. He's the one that got me in, man. I grew up in the 90s. Wolfpack Sting, man. I had the doll. I had the figure with the coat and the bat. Sting was it for me, man. I love Sting. I'm so glad to have another Sting fan.
Oh man, I was more Surfer Sting. I recall one of the shows. I think it was the first God Bless Texas.
Yeah.
So Justin Roberts is also a huge Sting fan. That's one of my good buddies. And so at the time, whenever he worked with us a lot, he helped me with a lot of things. We were so excited because we downloaded that Sting theme. This is Sting.
Yeah.
So he gets there and it's like, yeah, man, like we got your song, your old song and everything. He's like, which song? We told him, he's like, Jerry, I really don't like that song. I was like, what? It was almost like blasphemy, like, what you say? He's like, but man, if you really want me to come out to it, I will. I was like, no, man, if you don't like it, I don't want you to. I was like, I was like, a little part of my heart was broken. I was like, so what about bleaching your hair? And he's like, I was like, no matter what. He's like, but like I said, I can't say enough about Sting. Honestly, I think that every wrestler should carry themselves the way he does.
Absolutely.
And I say it a lot to people. If Sting is humble and he doesn't act like that, you have no right to act.
For sure.
It's true.
And like we talked about earlier, in case anybody missed it, Sting will be coming back with us February 27th in Wichita, Kansas at the Cotillion. You guys should come.
Yeah.
If you guys have never seen Sting like that, you guys should come. It's amazing on our level to see Sting like that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Be nice.
I think that'll be probably our 5th or 6th time to have Sting or somewhere like that.
Wow.
Got to.
So before we wrap the show up, is there anything you want to tell people for this Saturday, December 11th in Dallas, Texas for the show?
What's Saturday?
World.
Oh, that show. Yes. I kid. We'd love to have everybody come out. Kids 13 and under, general admission tickets are free, 2 per adult. Regular tickets start at $10. You don't want to miss this show. It's a defining moment in the new presentation of our product. We're going to leave you guys wanting more, I promise you. There's 10 matches. We have stars from WWE, AEW, MLW, and some of the best regional talent around. Make sure you come because I promise you, you'll be happy that you did. You can get your tickets at worldclassprowrestling.com or Eventbrite. And, to me, it's a real great way for us to close out 2021. As we head straight into 2022, I think we have 30 to 40 shows on the book for next year. And, I think it'll be our biggest year since 2018. 2018, I think we had 42 live events or something like that. And we're aiming to break that. And with everybody's support and love, we can do that. Like I talked about earlier, any independent wrestling company relies on your support. We need your support, all of these companies. And, it's a great atmosphere. We all come together because we all have this common love in our life. But remember while you're there to treat people the way that you want to be treated, not just there, but in general, spread love and positivity, not negativity. There's enough of that as is. And, I'd like to thank everybody that has come out and supported us in the past because, all the stuff I talked about on this podcast isn't possible without people's support.
Without a doubt. We thank you so much for being on the podcast tonight. We thank everyone on YouTube and Facebook for watching, and we will see you guys in the next episode of the Pack Podcast.